Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that continues to be excellent to each other and potty on, dudes. It's SiftPop. Welcome to SiftPop Weekly, streaming live most weekends or available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
Whoa.
Nice. I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and he's more dangerous than a baby rattlesnake. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy.
Each week, we'll chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And right now on our minds, Andrew, is SiftPop Live Video is back.
Yeah, buddy. Woo, woo, woo. Beep, 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 beep. Or whatever that horn sound is.
Nice. Yeah, we are back live on YouTube and now also live on Twitch and Periscope and possibly some other avenues coming soon, depending on how that goes. We can see your live comments if you join us live. We may interact with those a little bit. Now, Andrew, I don't know if you know this. This is an audio podcast that is now also a video podcast and is actually now primarily a video podcast. I don't even know how all this works. What do you think? Should we ignore the audio part of things?
Yes, it's great.
Yes, we are excited.
My evil takeover has finally come to fruition.
You know, I think we can do both. I think that at the end of the day, we can have a fun video show at 1:30 Central Time in the afternoon every Sunday afternoon. Spend your Sunday afternoons with us, hang out, watch the fun. We're having a good time. And also be respectful to the people who may only be listening on audio. So, you know, if we put a listener question, like a live viewer question up on the screen, we can read it for you, that kind of thing. And that's going to be part of the fun, I think, is kind of having the interactivity through the live video and also continuing to do a fun audio podcast. So it's good times. It's exciting times.
Yeah, if you're listening to just the audio, you're not going to really miss anything. You're not going to hear things that don't make sense. It's just that with the video, you get a couple extra little treats.
Yeah. Already in the comments, Joey says, hey, glad to have the live video back. Appreciate that, Joey. Laura says, good to see your lovely faces again. So thank you, Laura. It's good for our lovely faces to be seen, I think, whatever the case may be.
Yep, I showered just for this video.
Yeah. It is exciting times. I hesitate to kind of move us into our first kind of topic of the day because it's such a surprise and such a There are times when people who are in the public eye pass away, they move on, and it has an impact. And I cannot remember a time where it hit me on such a deep level as Chadwick Boseman's announcement of his passing this past week. Yeah. And I spent some time crying. I spent some time thinking, and it was one of those things that I think it has to do a lot with just how he continued to pursue what he was doing while keeping this a secret and just worked through this crazy amount of trauma and pain for 4 years and
Yeah.
nobody knew. And I have so much respect for that decision. I have so much respect for him being able to do that in the process. And just you watch back some of the interviews and you watch back some of the speeches he did and some of the visits he did to kids dealing with cancer in hospitals, and you just think there's so much more there than you realized. And man, I have so much respect for him and so many thoughts and prayers for his family during this time. And man, it was quite a shock to the system, and then processing it was, this is going to sound weird, but it was a really beautiful thing to process through, knowing that he had, I'm sure over those 4 years, made this decision consciously to have this be, the way for it to go. And just to know that hopefully that piece of, working through it in that way was good for him and his family. So how did it impact you, Andrew?
Just total utter shock of when it all happened, because like you said, he chose to keep it a secret, which is obviously his right. He's not entitled to, you know, uh, we're not entitled to know everything about the man or anything
Yeah,
like
of
that.
course.
But it was just out of left field, and something that, it sounds weird to say, it's something I wish I could have prepared for, but at the same time, it's like I didn't have the last 4 years of me worrying. I just spent the last 4 years enjoying and just in watching in utter amazement as this man did more in the last 4 years than most will ever do in several lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
he
Go ahead.
truly lived an extreme, extreme and fantastic life that was definitely cut way too short.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Evan says that the trend is amazing. Neil Peart, I believe, did kind of the same thing, and it is I think a very powerful way to handle it, because now looking back on the choices that he made in the last 4 years and the characters he portrayed, among them Thurgood Marshall, Jackie Robinson,
Yeah.
James Brown, like just these choices that you look back and go, it all meant so much for him. We recently had the Da 5 Bloods conversation and how incredible he is
Yeah.
in that movie. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it is a huge loss. It is very painful, and yet there's some real power to the lessons learned from this. The other thing is to remember that you never know what the people around you are going through, the private battles that people are in. And I think that's such a valuable thing to remember as we try to love each other and give empathy to each other and understand each other. It's just the first thing we should think when somebody is maybe is exhausted or whatever, not handling things the way you would think they should, is to give them the grace to know, I don't know what trauma they're going through in their life, and I would want that grace too. So I think that's another valuable lesson through this whole thing that I've really appreciated seeing from a lot of people, is understanding that there's suffering going on that you may never be privy to. And it's one of the reasons we should look at each other in empathy and continue to respect each other in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Chadwick Boseman will be missed. It's just such a list of incredible roles that we will never know. And I just hope we can take those lessons from the way he handled his last 4 years and make our lives better and the lives better of the people around us. So we wanted to mention that at the beginning. It certainly impacted all of us in a pretty big way, and I'm sure you as well. And thank you for the live comments with people saying a lot of the same things. Andrew, let's get into it. Let's talk about some movies. We've got a couple to talk about this week. We've got our buried treasure as well, and a best ever challenge on best Keanu Reeves movies that we will get to as well. But let's kick it off with a review of Bill and Ted Face the Music. A visitor from the future tells best friends Bill and Ted that one of their songs can save life as we know it and bring harmony to the universe. Bill and Ted are back. Their goofy selves traveling through time, saving the world, or will they? Keanu's back. Alex Winter is back, and several others as well. What did you think, Andrew? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I liked it. I had a lot of fun with this movie. There were moments in this movie I was dying laughing. I don't think I liked it as much as the first two, but I think it is a very cohesive movie that fits right in there. So I liked it a lot. Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I think I'm going to go with just medium to low liked it. There's enough in this movie that I found myself just kind of, I'm putting up with is the wrong word, but I don't know. It felt like a movie out of place, which it is, right? Like the first two movies were made in a much different time, 30 years ago or whatever. And so it is one of those things where I know that this is trying to take a feeling from 30 years ago and translate it to kind of 2020. And for the most part, they succeed, but there were enough times where I was just like, movies are kind of better than this now. I know that sounds weird, but it's just like there were a couple times where I was just like, I'm not buying this into the same way that I would normally enjoy a movie. Now, having said that, this is definitely a Bill and Ted movie, and I think that's what we need to talk about right off the bat is how well this movie captures what those older movies were. Did you find that, Andrew?
Oh yeah. Maybe it's the fact that you see Keanu Reeves, in a lot of stuff. He's a big time star. But seeing Alex Winter back and just how easily he just jumped right back into that Ted or the Bill role, and I'm like, I'm like, oh yeah, the boys are back, and it just felt right, because the previous two movies end with them being told that they are going to write the song to save humanity. And this one picks up where it's them in the current age, but they still haven't written the song, which I think is a really smart take on the whole Bill and Ted. Like you would have expected them to do it by now, but time is running out, and the stakes are even higher now. So just seeing those guys back together, it just made it made jumping back into this universe a lot easier, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's very frictionless. There's not a lot of effort going into this movie and like trying to keep up with it or whatever. It knows it's silly. It continues to be silly. Both of these guys have fully embraced their roles. We actually, as a family, did a Bill and Ted marathon and watched the first two before watching Face the Music.
Very good.
And it was good to revisit those and kind of remember that it wasn't just the dumb humor. It actually was really, those characters are fairly well realized, more than you would think. Like there's an element to them that feels genuine that I had forgotten. And
yes.
I'll draw it especially Keanu. You feel the optimism and the joy from them, and just there's this real beautiful outlook that they have on life that I had completely forgotten about. I forgot about how authentic it felt, and that is captured in this new one as well, and captured through the rest of the cast and kind of what's going on with them, including the daughters. Little Bill and Little Ted were apparently daughters this whole time, which is a fun little reveal. But it's one of those things where if there's a reason that I'm just going to watch this movie again or enjoy it, it's because of that optimistic nature and just kind of that fun. We will figure our way through this, or stumble our way through this, or whatever the case may be, because optimism is going to win the day.
Yeah. There are about 3 different plot or story arcs in this movie, like 3 different stories being told simultaneously. And progressively, they get less interesting for me. Like, starting with actual Bill and Ted, their story arc, I think, is brilliant. Like, how their journey goes through. Then there's the daughter story arc, which I think is it's good, but it's pretty much just the first two movies retold with, them. Because one of my pros and one of my cons is about the exact same thing, which is weird. I think that the daughters did a really good job of, taking on that role of becoming Bill and Ted and acting like Bill and Ted. But at the same time, I really wish that they had been their own characters with their own personalities instead of just trying to imitate Bill and Ted. And then there's a third story arc, which you probably even forgot about, and that's the story arc of the wives, which is just beyond pointless. It doesn't serve anything in this movie. That I was like, why are we even bothering with this? I mean, if you're going to do it, have it actually say something, and it doesn't. It doesn't say anything at all. So I was surprised how introspective about who you are and your legacy and stuff like that, that this movie was going to deal with Bill and Ted. But a lot of it's played for jokes, but if you actually listen, it's actually saying something pretty powerful, which I did not expect, but was pleasantly surprised by.
Yeah, you're right. There is an element of the movie trying to do a little bit too much and not having a way to resolve all the things that it wants to do. In many ways, I think there's a recognition that the first two movies are so much about Bill and Ted solely that there is place for a different perspective, whether it be a female perspective, those kind of things. And so I think the movie is trying to engage the women of the story in a bigger way. But you're right, it doesn't pay off in any kind of meaningful way, especially the wives story. I can hear what you're saying about that one. We should give a shout out to Samara Weaving, who plays Theodora, and Bridget Lundy Payne plays Wilhelmina. So I wanted to give a shout out to them as well. Also, Anthony Kerrigan playing the robot character, or Dennis. One of my favorite parts of the movie.
Favorite characters in the movie. Favorite character in the movie.
Yeah. I loved also seeing the actor that plays Death came back. There were also
Will Sandler. Will Sandler plays Death.
Yes,
I love that guy. Or Sandler,
There were shout outs to other things from the past, like the marriage of their stepmom.
Oh gosh! Now the babysitter, go mom, go stepmom, go sister-in-law. Yeah. Oh gosh, it's a running gag between all of the movies, and I didn't expect to see it again, but I'm so glad I did. It's perfect.
Yeah, and I think because the movie understands kind of what it has a good level of winks and nods for me as somebody who knows the first two movies, and after just watching them back to back, I think they do a really good job at that. I also found myself laughing quite a bit. I think the movie is funny.
Oh yeah.
So I think there's good stuff. We didn't mention Kristen Shaw, who I think is really funny and does good stuff here. So yeah, I think it's one of those movies that if you have a fondness for the first two, I think it's going to push the buttons that it needs to push for you to have a good time and enjoy this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only negative I haven't mentioned that I have is this movie, more than the first two, especially more than the first one, which people forget, the time travel in the first one was really simple. There wasn't a lot of complexity to it. It makes a fun little, it does a fun little thing at the end where it's like, I have to remember to go back and do these things so that, so
I thought that was in the second one.
No, that's the first one is where they have to remember to go back and steal the keys and remember to play the audio and remember the trash can. Remember the trash can. Remember the trash can. That's the first one. And then the second one, they play that card again, but then the
police
bad
station,
guy.
Wasn't it?
What's that?
Was that the one in the police station?
The police
where they had to
station
remember to type stuff up?
Yeah, that's the first one.
Oh, okay.
So in the second one, it's at the concert, the big concert at the end, and they try to do that on the bad guy there, and then the bad guy turns it on and is like, I can play that game too. I'll just remember to have a key to this cell kind of thing. Yeah. And it kind of makes it a little more complicated, and my brain kind of goes, wait wait a second. And then this one, the time travel is just like, okay, fine. Now you're just doing the thing that time travel movies do, where you actually don't care about how it all works
Yeah.
together. You're just having fun, which is okay, especially for a movie like this. That's fine. I'm not going to get caught up on the time travel aspect of this. I'm just saying I like the first one better because it handles it in more of a nonchalant, simple way than trying to get all complicated and go visit future versions of yourself and how does all that work and that kind of thing. So
Well,
yeah.
yeah, because if you look at the first two, for as simple-minded as these characters are, and for how low budget the movies actually are, they actually spent a lot of time making these seem like, you know what? Compared to some movies, those original Bill and Ted movies, they actually tried to understand time travel and the logistics of it, and they tried to make it smart. Where this one is the opposite. It obviously had a bigger budget than the other ones, but they decided, you know what, we're just going to throw a lot of special effects around, and hopefully that distracts you from the fact that the time travel is kind of him-hawed in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is one of those things. Laura in the comments was asking if if you haven't seen the first two, if you should see this one.
No, see the first ones first.
Yeah, I say
You'll miss a lot. You'll miss a lot.
If you're, I think you'll survive, obviously. It's one of those things where I think if you're going to spend time watching a Bill and Ted movie and you haven't seen the first Bill and Ted movies, just start with one. Just watch that one and decide if you want to watch more. Because once you watch the first one, you will get the sense of humor and you will know whether or not it's something you're going to jive with. And if you are, then you can keep watching them because you'll want to keep watching them. And if not, then, you haven't wasted time on something that was both not your thing and also a bit confusing because you hadn't seen the others. So that's just my recommendation. What would you say, Andrew? Would you recommend this for someone?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Especially if you're a Bill and Ted fan.
Yeah.
I would recommend it.
Yeah, and the character of Dennis is a very welcome addition to this cast.
There is a post-credit scene. I don't know if you saw it.
And it was great.
So there is definitely one of those to stick through the credits for. I will also say this isn't one you have to go to a theater to see. It is available video on demand.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they decided to do it both ways. That's how we experienced it. So it was one of those things where oftentimes when we're doing reviews now, the question may not be, do you recommend this, but is it worth braving the theater to see kind of thing? Maybe kind of the common question now. And for this one, I would say do video on demand, wait for it, whatever. But yeah, it's if you're a Bill and Ted fan, it's one you're going to want to eventually see, would be my answer. All right, Andrew, let us move on to the next movie. We're going to talk a little bit about the New Mutants. Magic, Wolfsbane, and other teenage mutants try to come to grips with their superpowers while staying at a secret facility. Boy, we don't have time to go through the stories of what this movie has been through.
Oh, gosh.
Other than to just say it has been done for a while in some way or another, and then tinkered with in one way or another, and then the studio changed hands, and I think Disney eventually decided not to mess with it anymore and just try to quietly release it as much as possible. And here it is. It is now available to watch. This one is not available on video on demand. You would actually have to go to a theater to see this if you wanted to. So what did you think, Andrew? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I liked it. I actually liked this one. Yeah. Maybe High Side have liked it. Yeah.
Ooh, fun. Well, this could be a fun conversation. I'm on the middle to low side of didn't like it. I in the only reason I'm not in hated it is because of how much I love the X-Men universe. Like, it is really difficult for you to make a bad X-Men movie for me. I have so much fun watching these movies. There's just something about mutants and their powers and just this world that speaks to me in fun, interesting ways. This movie I felt was devoid of a lot of the personality and purpose that makes those other Mutants movies so fun. I really didn't buy into a lot of the characters. And so it was difficult for me to go along for the ride. And also, I didn't feel like most of them had any kind of like mutant power that other than one. There was one mutant power I found fascinating, and the rest just kind of felt like, yeah, I kind of seen that before. So I'm interested, Andrew, to hear you kind of tell me why you liked this movie. Even High Side have liked it. So what were some of your thoughts?
I actually like the idea of taking the X-Men universe and kind of changing up, the tone and vibe that we've seen from every single other one. Like there's a villain out there who wants to destroy the world, and we need to go stop him. The classic X-Men story. This is a more grounded, and by grounded I mean not the scope of it all is more grounded than a global scale epidemic or anything like that. It's more of a horror film, actually, like a thriller almost, which uh, it kind of makes sense considering not just the powers but also the idea of mutants in the beginning or in the first place, like how some of these powers can be terrifying. And if you really know how to tell a story that is basically about what the power is capable of doing, can make it really interesting. I think this is going to sound snobby and stuff like that, and I apologize in advance. I saw a whole bunch of Easter eggs for other mutants and X-Men stuff in this movie that I'm like, oh, I caught that. Oh, I caught that. Oh, I caught that, and it just made me feel smart. And maybe that's why I really like this movie. But I kind of get what you're saying. I kind of get what you're saying with the characters really not having personalities, and if they do have personalities, they are. I forget who I did read. I did read a review from somebody who put it perfectly, and I totally agree with it, that. This is a horror version of The Breakfast Club because everybody is a cliche of a trope, of a type of character. Like there's the snotty girl, there's the kind girl, there's the cocky bro, and then there's the goofy guy and stuff like that. And like, yeah, they're hitting all the basics with all of that. But at the same time, like if you kind of know that character's backstory, that's who they really are. So I don't know if it was like me going, I can, push this aside because I know Magic is really just a totally annoying person, which I'm just going to say this right off the bat. I think Anya Taylor-Joy's Magic was great. Probably my favorite character in the movie.
I disagree. I did not like her. I found her performance, to me, I just didn't believe it. It just felt so. In fact, I would point her character out, not necessarily her performance, but her character out as the one that annoyed me the most.
Really?
Yeah, I just didn't buy it, and I didn't like her at all. I didn't, and not just in a way of the movie wants to redeem her, which I think is kind of her thing, is she's a big jerk, and by the end she's part of the team kind of thing. But she says some, and not just her, there are others as well, and maybe this is an avenue of why this movie was so annoying to me. They say some really racist things to Blue's character, Danielle
Moonstar, Danny Moonstar.
Yeah, Danny Moonstar, about her Native American heritage. I'm sitting there thinking, if this was a black character and they were doing some of the equivalent racial, things at that character, there would be no redeeming them. But for some reason, it's one of those things, like the Native American thing makes more sense. I am not one who spends a lot of energy getting offended. It just affected the way I saw that character and the ability to have that character redeemed in my eyes. So it was just, I needed more time. If that character is going to go through a redemption process, they needed to see less awfulness, or more time to actually learn and mature in a way that I believed. Like, I believe that person is now matured beyond that level of awfulness kind of thing. Yeah. So,
I should say this, it might be the fact that Magic is one of my favorite mutants. So I may have given her a lot more grace than
that was the power that I actually found interesting. I find her power really fascinating.
Yeah.
And the visuals of the way it was presented was really cool. I liked everything about her power, the way it was presented, what she does. I just didn't like
Mhm.
anything about the character.
Yeah, I get that. Fun fact, in case you didn't know, Colossus, you know, the big Russian steel man, that's her big brother.
Oh. That's the other thing that I don't have that a lot of people have, like yourself, is such a background with the material that you know kind of the ins and outs of. Like you said, like I caught that reference. I probably
Yeah,
missed a bunch of references.
like
I caught the
Essex Corp and stuff like that. I'm like, I see what you did there and stuff like that. You know.
Yeah, I caught the reference when they were like, "Hey, do you want to be a part of the X-Men?" Like I caught that reference. I know what the X-Men are.
Yeah.
So I figured that one out. The other I'll try not to hover on the negative because really all around I wasn't impressed. I was most impressed for whatever reason with Charlie Heaton as the Sam character.
Yeah, Cannonball.
It felt to me the most authentic of the characters. Unfortunately, I feel like his backstory and storyline are just kind of waved at, and in really all the characters are their backstories are just a way to do horror for this movie. They're just a tool to use to create a nightmare scenario. They're not really
Yeah.
given to the characters in any kind of growth kind of way. They're just given to the characters to give them an enemy or a nightmare kind of way.
Yeah.
And so it was unfortunate to me, as good as I thought that performance was, and as much as I liked that character, there was just nothing there with him or really any of the other characters where I was just like, oh, what a cool thing, he
Hmm.
can go fast and go like a rocket, like he shoots off like a rocket. Yeah, like I don't know. It's like I don't know. I wasn't impressed with any of the other
Yeah.
characters in
Wait,
that way.
even Maisie Williams.
The, she was probably my second favorite. But again, it turns into a wolf. I mean, how many times do we need to see that, right? Like, I mean, how I don't know. I was really disappointed that it was like, oh, cool, bunch of new X-Men. And it's like, yeah, but I've seen all their powers before except for one.
Yeah.
You know?
But at the same time, I personally think that the story dynamic between Maisie Williams, I should just say Wolfsbane and Psyche or Mirage, whatever you want to call it. She has like 15 different mutant names. Um, I'll just say Moonstar, Danny Moonstar, and Wolfsbane. I think that the dynamic between the two of them was like amazing. I love that story arc between the two of them.
I like
And
the story arc. I didn't buy it. I didn't really buy their chemistry.
really,
Yeah, but a lot of that again has to do with the Moonstar character. I didn't buy into her at all, like any of her stuff. So yeah.
mm,
Yeah, but
interesting.
I liked the storyline part of it.
Yeah.
So and the in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer foreshadowing or what
Yeah.
some Buffy shadowing going on.
Love that.
But yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of
It,
TV. There's a lot of watching TV foreshadowing in this movie.
yes, there is a bit of that.
Yeah.
I don't want to steal your joy, Andrew. Though
Oh, you can't.
no, it is one of those things where I totally get it. I have sat on this very podcast and defended X-Men Apocalypse. So I know what it feels like to enjoy an X-Men movie that other people don't find as fun. But yeah,
Yeah.
to me I could really feel that this movie had a lot of people with different ideas of what this movie should be, because you mentioned the horror part of it. It's
Hmm.
obvious that somebody wanted this to be a horror movie, and in fact from my understanding, are that when this movie was created, the idea was it was going to be another R-rated
Yeah.
X-Men movie, and that it would be a true horror movie. And then for whatever reason, somebody wanted to dial that back and make it more of a thing. The interesting thing is that apparently Disney really didn't make a ton of content decisions with this, just release decisions. So at least there's that part of it that it didn't get messed with even again. And honestly, they didn't have to, because there's no danger in releasing this movie because it is such a contained story that it could be part of the MCU without even ever having to mention it again. Like it
Yeah.
could exist in the MCU without it even being a thing, or not. It doesn't matter. The movie is so self-contained that it doesn't have to mess with their plans for what they want to do with the X-Men. So yeah.
I get that. Yeah. I don't know if I'm even giving it grace, the movie, for just the production hell nightmare that it went through, that it actually turned out as good as I thought it did. I'm like, wow, you know what? A movie came out that is a semblance of a movie, because
Hey, that's a movie.
I honestly can't think of any other movie, and you could probably name one, that has gone through what this movie has to get released. I can't think of any other movie
Man, no.
It's insane. It's supposed to come out in 2016, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Or it was. I think we saw the trailer in 2016. It was supposed to come out in 2017. I can't remember, but still, regardless, years have gone by of it being pushed and postponed to be released. It's crazy. A lot of it is stuff that the studios did, and some stuff it's just the world happens, But I'm surprised that when I saw this movie, I'm like, you know what? I actually really like that one. That was fun. I would actually watch this one again.
I think there is an element of low expectations that can be helpful for a movie like this. And yeah, if you go into like this movie, everything that it's had to face, this is going to be awful. This is going to be terrible. Yeah, there's an element of it where it's like, no, they made a movie. They did make a movie. And actually the effects aren't bad. Some of the fight scenes are really cool to look at. But just overall, I just wasn't invested, and so for me, that's a really bad experience. So yeah, I didn't stick around to see if there was a post-credit scene. Andrew, did you?
There isn't. Nope.
Okay, no post-credit scene. Good to know. As far as the question, somebody in the chat was saying they would enjoy us answering the question: is it worth going out during COVID to see this movie? And I'm going to refrain from answering that question, and from us answering that question, for one simple reason: every situation is different, and I'm not here to tell you what's safe where you are or in your situation. I think we are better off saying, eventually, this is the kind of movie we think you'll like to see, or maybe not enjoy seeing. And for me, this is one you can easily miss. But for Andrew, probably you'd recommend it at some point for people to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very nice. All right, on to the best ever challenge. But before we do that, just a big thank you to our members and our supporters. The SiftPop members do amazing things at Patreon. Patreon.com/SiftPop. We recorded another members-only pre-show today that you can access there. Again, that's just Patreon.com/SiftPop. Talking a little bit about the live show and kind of our own experiences going back to theaters and what the theaters are doing, how well we thought they did here in this area. It was a really fun discussion, really interesting discussion. And if you want to check that out, again, you can do that at the Patreon, patreon.com/SiftPop. Really, genuinely, the SiftPop members are making this show possible for live video and for even the audio podcast. So thank you for doing that. We really appreciated it. If you're interested, you can go check it out. It starts at $3 a month, and there's some kind of fun perks at the different levels of membership. So again, that's patreon.com/SiftPop. All right, best ever challenge this week is best ever Keanu Reeves movies. Andrew, best ever Keanu Reeves movies. We will go number 5 to number 1, have a little bit of discussion. As always, if one of us has it lower than the other, the one who has it higher will trump it, and we will talk about it then. Thank you,
Trumpet.
Benny Goodman. Yes, I caught that. Starting at number 5, who's going first, Andrew? Who's going first?
Rock, paper, scissors. I'll let you go first.
I had rock. Okay. I'll go first. Number 5 is where I had speed. Speed is at number 5 for me. So this movie is old enough that you can tell it was made a while ago. but it is good enough that it will still hold your attention. It is the amazingness of Sandra Bullock
Yeah.
in one of her earliest roles. It is the amazingness of Keanu Reeves in one of his earlier roles. And the two of them together are great. The plot is ridiculous but fun, and it is
Suspenseful.
one of those edge of the seat suspenseful rides. And I have watched this fairly recently, and I
Me
think it
too.
holds up. I think
It
Speed holds
does.
up. So it is definitely one I would recommend you check out at my number 5. What's your number 5, Andrew?
It's one that I forgot Jeff Daniels was in until I rewatched it.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speed
No,
and
no, it's
Speeder.
speed. Uh, how am I supposed to talk now? Yeah, I really enjoy Speed a lot. I think that it does hold up. It does have one of the most infamous action scenes of all time with the bridge and the gap and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
No, Speed's great. My
Totally
number 5
realistic.
though.
Totally realistic
Oh
scene with
yeah,
the bus making that jump, you know?
have you ever
Absolutely
seen
realistic.
MythBusters try and do that?
Yes.
It's pretty pathetic. It's pretty
Yes.
pathetic. But you know, who knows? All right. My number 5. I'm gonna go with Point Break, another early action movie with Mr. Keanu Reeves.
It's
I
definitely in
think
my honorable mentions. Yep.
I love Point Break, man. Him and Swayze together. Uh, the undercover cop. I think this is like the best example of the origins of Fast and the Furious. You know, like the undercover cop trying to
Hmm.
get in with the criminals and then falling in love with the criminals and doing that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the stunts in this are insane. I know it's all fake, but there's the scene where Keanu Reeves jumps out of the plane without a parachute. And I'm just like, as soon as he does that, I'm like, okay, this is a pretty insane action movie. To try and jump out of a plane to catch another guy who has a parachute to use his.
Yeah.
Um, no, it's a really fun, interesting movie. I really like it a lot.
I agree. Point Break is a lot of fun, and again has some incredible people doing incredible work in it. Swayze's so good. So yeah, I don't begrudge you that pick at all. My
Yeah.
number 4 might be a surprise to some people.
Hmm.
My number 4 is a movie that was named after Keanu Reeves. I am going with Keanu at number 4 for me.
Yeah.
What's interesting is named after Keanu Reeves. He's not really in it except for as a voice, but that counts.
Yeah.
So yeah, this movie is Jordan Peele and
Keegan
Keegan
Michael
Michael
Key.
Key doing their thing. It's fun to see their sense of humor on the big screen. I think this movie is very funny. I have a good time with it, so I had it
Oh
at
yeah.
number 4.
When he has the street thugs in the minivan listening to George Michael, it's one of my favorite scenes.
It's so good, so
Yeah.
good, so good.
Yep. My number 4.
Yep.
I'm gonna stick with or I'm gonna go to the DC universe here. I'm gonna go with Constantine.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a very different representation of the character as opposed to the comic version of Constantine. But if you push that aside and just take the movie for as it is, it's fascinating. The original Constantine is English, and he doesn't fight solely, heaven and hell, angelic, demonic creatures. He does like all sorts of, crazy things that he deals with. But if you just look at this movie for as it is, I think it's fascinating and interesting. It makes you want to see more of this world the world that they made up as opposed to the one that has already been created. I think is just as interesting. Um, I think that Peter Stormare's representation of Lucifer is like one of the best ever on screen, and he's not even in the movie that long.
Mm-hmm.
I think this movie is a lot of fun. It's a really good watch, I think.
I just don't have a lot to say about it because I just don't remember a lot about it. I know I watched it
Mm.
back when it came out. It didn't hit me in a way that stuck with me, and so I haven't revisited it or anything. But I'm also not a comic book guy, so I I don't even think I knew about the connection until much later that it was even a comic book
Mm.
property. So
Yeah.
so there you go, Constantine. So my number 3 then.
Yes.
My number 3 is Much Ado About Nothing.
Mm.
This is the Kenneth Branagh version of Much Ado About Nothing with an incredible cast. I mean, you got Keanu in there, you got Denzel Washington in there, you got Michael Keaton in there, and Robert Sean Leonard. Everybody's favorite Watson in there. So, what more do you want? I had a really good time with this. I do actually enjoy Shakespeare adaptations, movies. Takes me a little bit kind of get into the rhythm of them, but then once I do, I really enjoy that style and that writing. And so this is an interesting one for sure. Did you ever see this one, Andrew?
No, because I'm not a Shakespeare guy.
Okay,
but I do like Robert Sean Leonard.
There you go. See, now you have a reason.
Yeah.
What do you got at number 3?
My number 3, I'm going to go with John Wick.
Good choice. Good choice in my honorable mentions.
Okay, yeah. The first John Wick movie, I think some people forget now because it's so beloved. But when the premise was released for this and the trailers were released, this looked like the dumbest movie ever. A guy he gets his car stolen, and then he goes on a rampage and kills every single person who had to deal with it. Then you watch the movie, then you see the thing with the dog, and then you the fight choreography, I think, and the action scenes are really what turned not only this movie, but I think Hollywood's perspective on what a good action movie is around. Because before this, it was all Jason Bourne, quick cuts, shaky cam, stuff like that. You really couldn't tell what's going on. Now, this is a set camera, and you see the actual actors doing all these amazing stunts and choreography. Just so pure and amazing that you can really appreciate how good this movie is. And not only that, but I think the first movie did an excellent job of making you want to know more about this world with the coins, with the Continental, and how there's an underground of assassins that you're like, oh, I just want to know more. There's all these women that are dressed like they're in the 50s, but they all got tattoos who send telegrams and stuff like that. Like, I just need to know everything. And I think that the second movie did a really good job of expanding that world even further. I don't think the story is as interesting as the first one. And the third one, I think, is just, it's the best action out of all 3 movies, but it has the weakest story.
Yeah, we're in pretty much agreement on the Wick movies. I think the first one is clearly the best in my opinion. I think it has the best character development, world building, and still the incredible action that the others have. I really view, honestly, the John Wick trilogy, now a trilogy, will be more than that, in pretty much the same ways I do the Matrix, which is the first one's the best, and then the others are still interesting and fun, but they don't have that same level of depth to what they're doing. At least I shouldn't say depth, but they don't have that same level of engagement for me as the first one does. So no, good
I'm
choice.
right there with you.
Good choice.
Your number 2?
My number 2 is Toy Story 4.
Me too.
Oh, nice. Yes. He's so great in it, and he's such a quote unquote small part. But the Toy Story movies, man, they just keep staying amazing, and this one is no different. It's a great film.
And he finally gave that soldier his high five he was looking for. No, Duke Kaboom is like one of the funniest characters in that movie. I love everything. Honestly, I think Toy Story 4 might be the funniest out of all the Toy Story movies.
You might be right there. They're all pretty funny, but this one is really, really funny. So yeah.
And it's keeping that trend of, we're going to make a Toy Story movie that's going to make you laugh a lot, but at the end you're going to cry.
Well,
thanks
Pixar. Yeah, thanks Pixar. I think we got the same number 1 as well, Andrew. It's got to be The Matrix.
Yeah.
Where's The Matrix on your best ever list?
Give me 2 seconds and I can tell you. It's on there. I'll tell you that right now. But why don't you let people know what you think of it while I'm looking this up real quick?
Oh, sure. Matrix
it's 27. 27. 27th greatest movie of all time. I rewatched it recently, and I forgot how well shot this movie is. And I'm not talking about the action scenes, how they invented so many different, cool inventions, like the cameras that go all the way around to get those cool 360 shots of him dodging the bullets and stuff like that. I'm talking about the scenes like where they're climbing, where they're inside the walls and they're like going down. And like, wow, the way that shot is beautiful. Or there's these overhead shots of them going on the spiral staircase. I'm like, this is just a gorgeous movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's astonishing. I genuinely think it's impossible for someone who didn't experience it, and even for those of us who did, to remember or realize how game changing this movie was.
Oh, absolutely.
Even as I'm saying it, I feel like I have lost a little bit of the ability to really understand what I'm saying, because it was a seismic change for at least American audiences, because I know that there are movies that this is taking from some techniques and ideas that other movies had done. But at least on a big scale for an American audience, it seismically changed action movies. And there are some movies that I think you can say changed filmmaking, and this is one of them in a handful of those. And in fact, one of the other ones is the original Toy Story. Ironically enough, it was one of those kind of movies, but just absolutely changed movies. And this movie did that. I think I have it at number 7 on my best all-time list. So
wow, you have it even higher than I do. But I get it. This movie is out of this world, and it's not just the great action, and it's not the perfect cohesiveness between good CGI and wire work. It's not just that. I think that the character development, the story arc, the symbolism, how the predictability of human evolution with AI and stuff like that. This movie has a lot to say beyond being just an amazing action film.
Yeah,
the characters that you come away with from this are just like, and you have you ever heard the theory that Neo isn't the one?
Yes, I have. Yeah. There are a lot of fun theories and interesting things to think about with this movie. I am reminded by my brother on Twitch. He says, Aaron, you said the Matrix was going to only be, and I quote, the Matrix is going to just be eye candy. He's not wrong. That is what I thought. I thought while watching
when it first came out?
Yeah, when it first came out, that it was just going to be a visual spectacle, and a beautiful visual spectacle, and I couldn't have been more wrong. There's so much more to it than that. So, yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And I do honestly believe, I think that the Neo Agent Smith subway fight is the best fight scene of any movie ever. Not like I've seen better choreographed, but I think like what it stood for and stuff like that makes it the best, fight scene out of any movie. Yeah.
Let's talk honorable mentions, shall we? Why don't you run through some of yours first?
Okay, I will throw out my favorite Bill and Ted movie, and that's actually the second one. I think Bill and Ted Bogus Journey is a much more fun movie than the first one. I love them all. Obviously, I'm wearing the shirt, for crying out loud.
Strong disagree.
You think the first one's the best?
I think the first is much better than the second, but there's not a wrong answer, really.
Yeah. The only other movie that I would mention is Hardball. It's a good, inspiring movie. It does feel like it falls into that the Great White Hope, coming to save, the poor, destitute black children. But it's emotional. It's beautifully acted. There's some tearjerker moments in it. I think it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah. Good call. I have Always Be My Maybe, which came out recently on Netflix. If you haven't checked it out, might be worth watching. 47 Ronin that's
actually fun. It's a fun movie.
The Day the Earth Stood Still is pretty widely accepted as terrible, but I actually kind of had fun with it, so I thought I'd mention it here. The same as Johnny Mnemonic, and then I thought I wanted to mention Parenthood as well. So
one movie that I enjoy, but I don't think I could ever recommend, just because I don't know who I'd recommend to, is Neon Demon.
Oh yeah, that is not a recommend for me. I thought
you don't like it,
awful.
or
no? You
thought it was awful.
Yeah.
Nicholas Winding Refn has a way of making some of those beautiful movies that are just so inaccessible. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know who I'm gonna tell
Yep.
to see this movie besides Drive and maybe Valhalla Rising. I don't know what other movie I'd be like, oh, if you like this, you definitely need to check out Neon Demon or
Yeah.
what was that one with Ryan Gosling in Thailand? Only God Forgives.
Yeah.
I know you'd really like Only God Forgives. You watch that movie, you're like, what is going on?
Who does he think I am? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Did I say A Scanner Darkly? That's another one that's kind of worth watching
Man, I really want to see that movie.
just for the visuals, if nothing
Yeah.
else. So yeah. There you go. There's Keanu Reeves movies. If we forgot any, let us know. We would love to know them. Feel free to hit us back. Feedback at siftpop.com or hit us up on Twitter. It is down to our buried treasure. Andrew, why don't you go first? What's that one thing in any area of pop culture that you want to make sure people know about?
Well, last week during our pre-show, we were talking about DC fandom and how I had not seen the Batman trailer yet. I finally got around to seeing it. Uh, it looks good. I'll just say it looks good because I don't want to spend the next 15 minutes talking about it.
Well, it's about time they made a Batman movie.
Finally,
Finally. It's just been so long.
I mean,
It's good to
I'm
see.
so inundated with all these Doctor Fate and all these other, like, how many Doctor Fate movies are they gonna make, or how many Spawn movies or Calvin and
Right.
Hobbes movies or anything like that? No, we need more Batman movies. He's so underappreciated. But from what I can tell, the movie looks like it's based off of a comic called The Long Halloween, which is a great Batman story, and that was going to be my buried treasure for today. But then DC decided they were going to release a new comic series that I forgot was coming out, and that is The Three Jokers. For those of you who do not know, The Three Jokers was mentioned back in the Justice League whenever Batman sat down in the Morbius chair, which is the chair which contains all the knowledge in the universe. And he asked the chair, who is the Joker? Like, what is his real name? And the chair replied, which one? And that's when you realized, wait, there's more than one Joker? Turns out there's three Jokers. And they've been building to this comic series for the last 2 years, and it finally got released, the first issue. And the first issue, I think it's going to be a 3-part issues. I think the first issue is really just setting up, what to expect from where the story's going to go. But a lot of crazy stuff happens in this first issue that gets me really excited for the one coming out in September. And then I actually think the third one's coming out in November. I could be wrong though. But no, definitely check out this first one. It's interesting for sure.
Okay, fair enough. If I ever decide to read comics, I'll keep that one towards the top of the list.
Yep.
That is one area where in a different world, I'm a huge comic book fan. You know what I mean? Like but for a couple different decisions or well-placed, moments in my life, I can see myself reading comics, but it's weird, or comics, because it's weird now. Like I have no desire to read comic books. I just, I've got too many movies and TV shows to watch. It's like
I still honestly think you should read Watchmen, considering how much you love the show.
Oh man,
I think you would really enjoy at least reading that one.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. I'm going to do a podcast, and it's a little bit of log rolling for SiftPop, but I haven't mentioned it here yet, and I really want to because I'm enjoying it, and I think if you like what we do, you might enjoy it as well. Aaron Schweitzer, who is one of the writers at SiftPop, has started doing a SiftPop Writers Room podcast. And he basically has a different SiftPop writer on each week, and there are some repeating guests as well, to talk about some movies that are coming out, some pop culture stuff, what's going on at the website, all that kind of fun stuff. And it's a really fun listen. So if you have space in your podcast listening, however you listen to podcasts, whatever, if you do a search for SiftPop, you will now not only find us, but you will also find SiftPop Writers Room. And I'm really, really proud of the group of writers that write for the site now and how much fun they're having with the best ever challenges. By the way, I should
We're
mention
lucky with how awesome they are.
it's incredible. And a lot of times when you hear us go over the best ever challenge here, there is a written version of that from the SiftPop writers where they each pick their best ever of whatever the category may be and run those down a top 10 list plus honorable mentions. So for instance, if you're interested in hearing more about best ever KEANU movies, go check out SiftPop.com and it's probably there. So I wanted to let you know about that. If you're interested in checking out another podcast from some of the writers at SiftPop, you can look for SiftPop Writers Room in your favorite podcast player and check it out. We'd appreciate it. Well, there you go. We did it, Andrew.
Yeah, we did.
We did it with live video and audio and comments and fun and
we didn't even have to go to Limbo to do it.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. SiftPop is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network by going to studiodna.media or just search for Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out today.
Thank you, buddy.
Huge thanks to producer Phil for producing the video and audio show.
Thanks, Phil.
He can hear you. I saw him even in the comments. He's doing his thing. Much love and gratitude to our SiftPop members as well for giving monthly to make SiftPop a real thing. Support starts at $3 a month. Comes with some pretty fun perks, including all the bonus episodes that are just for members. You can find it all out at patreon.com/SiftPop. A lot of ways to connect with us. Feel free to email us, feedback@siftpop.com. Hit us up in the DMs on Twitter. I'm at Aaron Dicer. You can also leave comments, rate the podcast, all that kind of fun stuff at iTunes or whatever podcast player that you use. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like it too, so let them know about it and that listening is much easier than writing a song that will bring peace and harmony to the entire world. We will be back next week, probably with a little movie called Tenet and maybe even Mulan as well. So we'll see you then.
Bye.
Thank you, live video hanger-outers, hanging out with us on the live video. It has been another fun SiftPop show. Appreciated all the comments coming in. Lollipop says, Neon Demon was great, but I'm not sure I truly understood it. It was beautiful to look at, though.
Yeah.
That pretty much
I think that's about it. Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful to look at.
Says, Neon Demon had me sitting in the theater watching the credits with my mouth hanging open. Yeah, it'll have that effect on people. Handquake says, thank you for this. This was fun, smiley face. Yeah, wasn't it, though? I think this is going to be a blast. We'll do this every Sunday. For those who are continuing to watch this, come back next Sunday, 1:30 Central Time, Sunday afternoons, unless you hear otherwise. There will be a SiftPop live show to hang out with. Kyle says, great show, guys. Awesome to watch live again. Awesome to have you watching, Kyle. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Joey says something we're all feeling. So stoked for Tenet. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we will we'll have our thoughts next week. But once again, thanks for hanging out with us on the show, and let us know any feedback on the show, on the video show. We would love to know any thoughts you had. I know some of you were saying Andrew's audio was clicking a little bit at the beginning. We're still trying to figure that out. I think it cleared up, and for at least the second half of the show, kind of cleared up. So we're still kind of working on some of the ins and outs, and we appreciate
the audio version is going to be clean, though.
We should mention that. That's true. From what we can tell, the actual audio that we use for the podcast production comes out clean. So the clicking is only coming through this live video for some reason. So yeah, but if you have any thoughts on how the video show is going, other ways we can make it fun, we would love to hear that. Feedback at siftpop.com is probably the easiest way to do that. But we appreciate you guys. We love you all, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.